After receiving the necessary blessings and instructions, Aaron set out on his journey, unaware of the sinister plot that had been hatched against him. As soon as Aaron departed, the high priest secretly alerted Prince Ukandu that the time had come to execute their plan. Ukandu swiftly dispatched his 3 most loyal guards, instructing them to ambush and kill Aaron in the forest. The guards followed Aaron's trail, tracking him into the dense woods. As Aaron reached a secluded area, the guards struck without warning, attacking him from behind. They mercilessly beat him, raining down blow after blow, until Aaron lay motionless on the ground, his body battered and lifeless. Satisfied with their heinous deed, the guards left Aaron's body in the forest, believing their task was complete. However, unbeknownst to them, a female hunter had witnessed the brutal attack from a distance. The female hunter, horrified by the senseless violence, rushed to Aaron's aid. He gently lifted Aaron's limp body and carried him back to his village, laying him down in his humble hut. The hunter frantically tried to revive Arinza, administering various herbs and remedies in a desperate attempt to save his life, but to his dismay, Arinza showed no signs of breathing or response. No matter how hard the hunter tried, as the evening approached, the high priest, unaware of the treacherous events that had transpired, went to Aaron's home to collect the items for the final cleansing and rituals. However, he found Chief Uso sitting outside, visibly worried about Aaron's prolonged absence. He should have been back by now, Chief Uso said, his furrow with concern. The forest is not far, and he should not have taken this long. The high priest, feigning ignorance, suggested that they wait until the next morning, hopeful that Aaron would return by then. However, his words betrayed the sinister truth. He knew exactly what had befallen Aaron in the forest, and he had no intention of revealing the treacherous plot to Chief Uso. As night fell, the hunter continued his efforts to revive Aaron, but each attempt was met with failure. Aaron's body remained motionless, his spirit seemingly departed from this world. The hunter, unwilling to give up, redoubled his efforts, determined to save the life of the man who had been so brutally attacked. He prayed to the ancestors for guidance and strength, hoping that their divine intervention would breathe life back into Aaron's broken form. The next morning dawned, and still there was no sign of Aaron's return. Chief Uso had spent the night outside, unable to sleep, waiting and hoping for his son's arrival. Tears streamed down his face as worry consumed him, wondering what could have befallen our ends in the forest. Meanwhile, the high priest sent for Prince Ukandu, seeking confirmation that their sinister plan had been carried out successfully. Ukandu arrived at the high priest's residence, and the 2 men celebrated their perceived victory, believing that Arinza had been eliminated. With a sense of urgency, the high priest set out to check on Aaron's status, hoping to find him absent. As he approached Chief Uso's home, he saw the elderly man still waiting outside, his eyes filled with concern. If Aaron does not return by tomorrow, we'll have no choice but to make Prince Ukandu the new king over the 5 kingdoms, the high priest declared, attempting to mask his deceit with an air of authority. Chief Uso, unwavering in his faith, responded calmly, "Hold on, the ancestors will bring Aaron back if he does not return by tomorrow. I still will not install Prince Ukandu as the ruler." The high priest, growing impatient, warned Chief Uso that the kingdom could not linger without a leader for much longer, as things were already becoming unstable. After voicing his ultimatum, he departed, leaving Chief Uso alone with his worries. Undeterred, Chief Uso remained outside, calling upon the ancestors to guide and protect Erinzi. He refused to lose hope, believing that the divine forces that had chosen that Rince as the true king would not abandon him. As night fell once again, Chief Uso remained steadfast in his vigil, his eyes fixed on the path that led into the forest. He refused to succumb to despair, clinging to the belief that Aaron would return and the ancestors' plan would be fulfilled, while the hunter continued her tireless efforts to revive Erinzi, unaware of the turmoil and UNC certainty gripping the village. She prayed and administered every remedy she knew, determined to bring life back into Aaron's battered body. Meanwhile, as news of Aaron's apparent failure to return spread, Prince Ukandu and his loyal bodyguards began jubilantly celebrating their imminent coronation. They cheered and reveled joyously as Ukandu promised to shower them all with immense wealth and riches beyond their wildest dreams. The arrogant prince lavished effusive thanks and rewards upon the bodyguards for their crucial efforts had enabled him to seize the ultimate prize, becoming the High King over all 5 kingdoms. As Rala celebrations rang out from Ukandu quarters, air of solemnity and worried hum over Chief Uso's modest home when the devastating news reached the wise healer of the high priest's sinister plans to install Ukandu king in Aaron's place. Uso became deeply troubled. However, his faith in the ancestors and their divine plan for his adopted son never wavered. Uso remained steadfastly planted outside the front of his home, keeping his silent vigil just as he had done countless times awaiting Aaron's return. The elderly man's eyes stayed focused on the horizon, periodically closing as he directed passionate prayers to the ancestors to protect Arzi and bring him home safely before it was too late. No matter how dire the situation appeared, with Ukandu corrupt celebrations growing louder, Uso's trust in the ancient ways remained unshakable. Working against him might be the evening before the coronation. Yvette, the hunter who had been trying to revive Arani, grew weary as Aaron's body showed no signs of breathing or life. Believing Arani was dead, the hunter decided to discard the body in the midnight hours to avoid being labeled a murderer. As night fell, Aaron's body remained cold and motionless, having not moved since the days of the attack. The hunter carefully carried Aaron's lifeless form, intending to dispose of it deep in the forest. Upon reaching his chosen location, he gently laid Aaron down and looked at him one final time before turning to leave. However, the hunter had only taken a single step away when she heard a faint cough and wheezing sound. Whipping around in a rush, she saw Aaron's chest ever so slightly rising and falling. Aaron was alive. The hunter swiftly scooped him up and hurried back to his small hut, cradling Aaron's fragile body. Once inside, the hunter tended to Aaron, preparing a steaming hot tea to help revive his battered frame. As Aaron is slowly sipped, the revitalizing brew's strength and awareness gradually returned to his weary form. Finally, his eyes fluttered open, and he asked in a raspy voice what had happened and how many days he had been here. The hunter proceeded to recount the harrowing events, explaining how men dressed as royal guards had viciously attacked and beaten Rinzo, leaving him for dead during the assault. The Aaron had recognized one of the guards from the day Prince Ukandu married Princess Adanne years earlier. Aaron was shocked and enraged to learn that Ukandu's own men had tried to kill him. As memories came flooding back, he recalled that the following day was meant to be his official coronation ceremony to become the High King over all 5 kingdoms. If he failed to appear, the corrupt High Priest would surely crown Ukandu in his place. Realizing the dire urgency of the situation, Arinza begged the hunter to help him and accompany him back to his village that very midnight. Though the hunter protested that Orin needed more time to regain his full strength, the determined prince insisted he needed to find his father, Chief Uso, immediately and inform him of the assassination attempt. Ao was surely deeply worried over his son's mysterious disappearance. Seeing the resolve in Aaron's eyes, the hunter finally agreed to make the journey with him under cover of night. They swiftly prepared supplies and set off, moving as swiftly as Aaron's battered condition would allow, driven by the knowledge that reaching Chief Uso before dawn could be crucial in thwarting Ukandu's treacherous plot. They traveled through the dense forest by moonlight, making use of ancient hunting trails and wisdom to navigate the terrain swiftly yet safely. Arinza remained on a high alert, his nerves frayed as every snapping twig or rustling brush raised fears that more of Ukandu assassins could be lying in wait. However, the journey passed without any further incident, and as the first rays of dawn began peeking over the horizon, Arinza and the hunter finally arrived at the outskirts of the village. Aaron felt his heart clench at the familiar sights and sounds of the modest community that had been his entire world for so many years before his true destiny was revealed. Renewed determination filled his veins, fueled by righteous anger over the grievous wrongs committed against him simply for having the audacity to be born the rightful heir. No matter what further trials lay ahead, Aaron knew he could not allow the ancestors' sacred choice to be usurped by corrupt men like Ukandu and the High Priest. As they approached Chief Uso's humble dwellings, Aaron could see the elderly healer's silhouette sitting exactly where he had left him days earlier, maintaining a steadfast vigil. While awaiting his adopted son's return, despite the wound's exhaustion and turmoil weighing on him, Aaron managed a tired smile, reassured that his father figure still placed unwavering faith in him and the ancestors' grand design. As they approached Aaron's house, Chief Uso was sitting outside, hopeful and believing that Aaron would return to him. He set his eyes on the figures approaching from a distance. Aaron's called out father upon hearing his son's voice. Chief Uso stood up swiftly and rushed to embrace his longing child, thanking the ancestors for seeing Aaron through his ordeal safely. However, Uso quickly noticed the wounds and bandages covering Aaron's body. Deeply concerned, he immediately asked what had happened and who the accompanying woman was that had brought Aaron back. Uso swiftly brought out a chair, and they sat down together that night to recount the harrowing events. The female hunter narrated how people dressed in royal bodyguard attire had viciously attacked and tried to kill Arinza. Being outnumbered 3-1, the hunter could not intervene directly, so she hid and watched, waiting for an opportunity to help Aranz. Afterwards, Aranz then added that during the assault he had recognized one of the guards from Prince Ukandu wedding to Princess Adanne years earlier. Upon hearing this, Chief Uso grew angry, stating that he had known something was amiss on the day of the ancestral staff test. He had noticed suspicious signs in communication between Prince Ukandu and the high priest, but did not pay it much attention, as he firmly believed Aaron would successfully lift the staff and return safely. Guided by the ancestors, the wise healer thanked the ancestors once more for bringing his son back to him. It was then that the hunter realized with shock and surprise that the man she had been trying to revive was the prophesied king to be Chief Uso. My son, the high priest, grew impatient, awaiting your return. When you did not arrive, they concluded, the ancestors found you unworthy to lead our people. They have decided to install Prince Ukandu as the heir to the throne. Instead, news of this has spread across all 5 kingdoms. I fear they tried to prevent your return by attempting to kill you so Ukandu could become king. They have betrayed the ancestors' choice and your rightful claim. You must confront them before the illegitimate coronation takes place and expose their treacherous plot. The people must know the truth of what they have done to undermine the divine plan. Chief Uso quickly devised a plan to storm the coronation grounds the following day and expose Prince Ukandu, the high priest, and everyone involved in the attempt on Aaron's life. They pleaded with the hunter to accompany them to the event, and though hesitant, the hunter ultimately agreed to join them, having no choice but to wait and see what fate had in store. As the night wore on, they discussed strategy and steeled their resolve for the confrontation to come. Aaron, still recovering from his wounds, found renewed strength in the belief that the ancestors had preserved his life for a greater purpose, to reclaim his rightful place as the chosen High King and bring justice to those who had tried to subvert the divine plan through violence and deceit. Chief Uso tended to his son's injuries with a steady hand, applying healing salves and remedies passed down through generations of village healers. Though the wounds were severe, he could sense Aaron's unbreakable spirit remained intact, his determination to fulfill his destiny burning brightly. The long hours ticked by as they waited for dawn's first light, making final preparations and seeking guidance from the ancestors through ritual invocations. That same night, Prince Ukandu was overjoyed, celebrating raucously with his guards and kinsmen. Everywhere was alive with excitement as they drank copious amounts of wine to commemorate their wicked act of treachery. Meanwhile, Princess Adanne, who had previously been anxious for power and status, had undergone a profound change. She was now filled with anger and concern for Arinzad, desperately hoping for his return to claim his rightful place. Disgusted by the celebrations, Adanne angrily retreated to her chambers. Finally, the long-awaited day of Prince Ukandu coronation had arrived. Men from every corner of the 5 kingdoms gathered at the coronation grounds, forming a vast crowd. Kings, nobles, and queens were also in attendance, eager to witness the historic event. The high priest stepped forward, a warm smile spreading across his face as he relished their apparent success in achieving their dreams through deceit. Prince Ukandu made his grand entrance, greeted by raucous cheers from the crowd, who were charmed by his presence. They were overjoyed at the prospect of finally having a king installed after such a prolonged period of waiting and uncertainty. The atmosphere crackled with excitement and anticipation as the elaborate coronation ceremony began unfolding. Chief Uso, Aaron, and the hunter emerged from the humble dwellings, armed with grim determination and the truth as their greatest weapons. They set off towards the palace grounds, where the illicit coronation was surely unfolding. Even now, Aaron gripped the sacred ancestral staff, tightly drawing strength from the spirit of his noble birthright coursing through the ancient totem. He was the true king, and no amount of treachery would be allowed to supplant that truth. On this fateful day, the high priest's son overheard coronation poem on to crown Prince Ukandu as king. Disturbed by this, he rushed to Chief Uso's house and met them on their way to expose his father's treacherous actions. He explained how the high priest conspired with Ukandu, attempting to rig the process so Ukandu could seize the kingship through deceit. The son revealed he had witnessed his father trying to tamper with the sacred ancestral staff, ensuring Ukandu could lift it fraudulently. Realizing the extent of their devious scheme to go against the ancestors' true chosen heir, he could not allow such treachery to crown an unworthy king over their people. When Chief Uso heard this, he became enraged at the audacity of their plot. He pleaded with the high priest's son to join forces with them as they journeyed to the coronation ground. Aaron and a hunter to expose this evil before it could transpire in the kingdom. The young man agreed, his conscience not allowing him to stay silent. Meanwhile, at the coronation grounds, the high priest addressed the gathered crowd with a booming voice. Today we will crown our new king, who will govern over all the kingdoms. He gestured grandly at the lavish setup, the ornate throne, the ceremonial coronation attire, and the drummers. Poised to provide the sacred rhythms, Princess Adanne was very angry and not happy about what was happening, and the injustice happening. Let the prince step forward to take his rightful place, the high priest proclaimed. Prince Ukandu strutted arrogantly through the crowd and took his place seated upon the throne, a smug sneer on his face. The high priest raised the ceremonial crown high, preparing to officially install Ukandu as ruler, but just as his hands began descending to place the crown upon Ukandu head, a thunderous shout erupted from the entrance. Stop! All eyes turned to see Aaron, Chief Uzo the hunter, and the high priest's son, burst through the gates in dramatic fashion. Chief Uzo raised his voice loudly. Stop the coronation, you monsters! Aaron set out his voice very loudly, saying, you plan to kill me and make Prince Ukandu the king. All eyes were on them. Princess Adanne was very happy to see Aaron alive. Meanwhile, King Chuka said, is this not Aaron who they pronounced dead? What is happening? The high priest wanted to run, but the other 5 kings instructed their guards to hold him and Ukandu down, which they did as Chief Uzo, Aaron the hunter, and the high priest's son approached the place where they were coronating Prince Ukandu. Chief Uzo stepped forward to address the crowd. He said Prince Ukandu sent his guards to kill Aaron while he was on a ritual cleansing assignment to go and get items for the last ritual. Prince Ukandu wanted to protest, saying, that's a lie. I haven't heard anyone in my lifetime. They should stone Chief Uzo to death for this allegation. The hunter stepped forward to narrate what she saw. She said, I recognized the faces of the 3 guards who tried to kill Aaron. I was resting after a long day of hunting when I heard a noise and a scream. I ran to check what was happening, and behold, it was these 3 guards beating this young man Aaron. They'd beat him and left him lifeless, but I rushed to help him and saved his life. The hunter continued, I took Aaron to my hut and tried to revive him for days, but he remained motionless. I thought he was dead, so I decided to discard his body in the forest to avoid being labeled a murderer. However, just as I was about to leave him in the forest, I heard a faint cough and wheezing sound. Aaron was alive. I quickly brought him back to my hut and tended to him until he regained consciousness. Aaron spoke up, his voice carrying across the stunned gathering. I remember seeing one of the guards on the day Prince Ukandu married Princess Adanne many years ago. As the high priest attempted to protest and deny his involvement in the treacherous plot, his own son boldly stepped forward holding a ceremonial staff. This was the fake staff my father, the high priest, had prepared in secret, meant to ensure only Ukandu could lift it during the final coronation tests. The son's face was set in grim determination. As he addressed the crowd, my father tried to rig everything in Prince Ukandu's favor from the start. I saw them inspiring and making plans together, but I hid this false staff without him knowing. A collective gasp rose from the assembled spectators as they realized the extent of the high priest's deceit and treachery. The holy man's eyes widened in shock and disbelief at his son's actions. Raising his voice angrily, he bellowed, son, so you have betrayed your own father? How could you do this to me? But the son stood firm, staring Levy back at his father. You taught me to always stand against injustice and uphold the truth no matter the cost. That is precisely what I am doing now. I don't care about anything else. The truth must prevail. I cannot fathom how you would stoop so low as to accept this evil and desperate spoiled prince's offer of riches over integrity. The high priest's shoulders slumped as the weight of his son's righteous condemnation struck him forcefully there before the wide eyes of every witness. The once highly esteemed holy man lowered himself to the ground and began pleading for forgiveness. In a trembling voice, he started narrating the full sordid tale of how Prince Ukandu had lured and enticed him into this dark plot. It had began when the arrogant prince approached me after the ancestral star ceremony, fuming that he had been denied his birthright. The high priest proceeded to recount how Ukandu had promised him immense wealth, gold, jewels, land, and more if he found a way to circumvent the ancestors' ruling and illegally install the corrupt prince on the throne instead of Aaron. Temptation and greed had caused the high priest's moral fortitude to crumble as he kept confessing, telling every detail of their evil plans. The people listening looked at disgusted and angry when he finally finished confessing. The main priest stayed quiet, waiting for punishment. With his head down, the 5 main kings looked at each other seriously. Understanding how serious the situation was, they nodded to their guards, who quickly grabbed the main priests, the 3 gods, and Prince Ukandu, tying them up tightly with ropes and chains. Even though Ukandu was shouting and protesting, King Chukmaker, as the second king in command of the 5 kingdoms, then stepped forward, reminding the people of their harsh but unbending laws and traditions. King Chuka's deep voice rang out across the gathered masses. Hear me, my people. Our most sacred laws strictly forbid any attempts to kill a recognized king or heir or to undermine the divine process that determines the true ruler chosen by the ancestors. The punishment for such transgressions is swift and severe. He locked eyes with the shackled high priest and Prince Ukandu. Those found guilty of these most grievous crimes against our people will be put to death by ritual stoning their bodies will then be discarded and left to rot in the evil forest, their souls forever denied peace in the ancestral realm. The crowd nodded in agreement with the fair decision. Everyone watched the guilty men to see how they would react at that moment. Something in the main priest seemed to break. Maybe it was the guilt of his wrongdoings being exposed. Maybe it was the thought of such a shameful end after being in such a respected position for so long. Whatever it was, the main priest's eyes looked wild and crazy as he started losing his sanity, realizing the terrible punishment awaiting him. The main priest couldn't handle the shame and pain anymore. He suddenly broke free from the guard's hold and rushed towards Prince Ukandu like he was crazy. Ukandu, still tied up,